Karen towed my SUV as junk not knowing. It was a SWAT crisis command unit. Chapter 1. You don't expect to be judged by the shape of your car, or its paint job, or the fact that it doesn't look like it belongs on a suburban cul-de-sac lined with golf carts and Teslas. But in our neighborhood, the absurd always finds a way to become official policy, especially when Karen Donnelly calls the shots. It started on a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday where everything feels like it's holding its breath. My name is Malik Grant. I'm a SWAT operations coordinator, Federal Crisis Response Unit. My work doesn't follow a clock. Some nights I'm up till 3 a.m., analyzing threat paths on encrypted servers. Others I'm parked in an alley waiting for a signal. Most of what I do lives in the shadows, and that includes my ride. The SUV is matte black. No plates, no chrome, bulletproof glass. It looks like a war machine because it is one. On paper, it's a training prototype. In reality, it's an active mobile command unit, equipped with encrypted comms, a drone dock, and a rapid deployment locker behind the rear seats. I park it in my driveway like anyone would backed in, discreet, covered under a sunshade. No markings, no need for questions, until Karen decided it was junk. We moved into Applewood Heights 8 months ago. I was promised quiet, privacy, a place where my 12-year-old daughter, Ayla, could ride her bike without side-eye. We picked the house at the edge of the neighborhood. Fewer neighbors, fewer problems, or so I thought. Karen lived diagonally across from us. Thin lips, thicker clipboard. Her yard had flags for every season. Little ceramic bunnies in March, scarecrows in October, and a sign that read, "Respect the rules," or "Leave." I should have left the day I saw that sign. The first complaint came in a pink envelope, hand-delivered, no postage. Dear resident, your vehicle appears to be non-functional and unsightly. As president of the Applewood Heights Community Appearance Committee, not HOA, I'm informing you that unregistered or damaged vehicles are not allowed in plain view. Failure to address this issue may result in removal at your expense. Cordially, Karen Donnelly. There was no name printed for me, just resident. I might have ignored it except 2 days later. I came home from a night training op to find a neon sticker on my windshield TOW order scheduled 48 hours. I called the number on the bottom. It led to a voicemail: "You've reached Applewood Residential Oversight. Leave a message." Not HOA, not city, not state, just oversight. Karen's oversight. I knocked on her door the next morning. Ayla was with me, holding a juice pouch, sleepy from the early walk. I figured I'd reason with her. "Karen," I began, "that vehicle is federal. It's not junk, it's not abandoned, and it's not going anywhere." She smiled at me like I was a child who didn't understand how chores worked. "If it was federal, it would be marked," she said flatly. "We don't allow eyesores on this street. That thing's intimidating. The neighbors are uncomfortable. This is a peaceful community." I took a breath, calm, measured. "I don't need to explain to you why an unmarked command vehicle exists. And I don't need to let it stay," she snapped. "I've already filed for removal." That was when I saw it, the tow truck, rounding the corner. Early, not 48 hours, not even 24. She had accelerated the order. I ran. I got to the SUV just as the driver hit the winch. I flashed my badge, federal asset, stepped back. But the driver had orders and a signed complaint, a local community removal form, signed by Karen and stamped by some off-brand legal service. Before I could stop him, the SUV was lifted, chained, and dragged off. Everything in it: laptops, encrypted drives, field kits gone. Karen stood on the sidewalk, arms folded. "Next time," she said smugly, "try complying." I saw red, but I also saw Ayla looking up at me, scared. I couldn't lose it. Not yet. The next few hours were chaos. I called the secure line, filed a retrieval protocol, and got put through to internal operations. "You said the vehicle was compromised," the voice asked. "Yes, towed illegally. What was onboard drone unit? data drive, current surveillance files, laptop with dual encryption. Silence. Malik, the voice said. We had that rigged to live surveillance in a live case. I swallowed. I know. You know the implications of unauthorized access. Right, I know. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ayla kept asking if I was in trouble. I told her no, but the truth, I was under review until the unit was secured. If anything leaked, I could lose my clearance or worse. Karen had no idea what she'd done. Or maybe she did. The next morning, I walked the block. A few neighbors looked away when I passed. One waved awkwardly. Another crossed the street with his dog. I checked online. Karen had posted photos. A blurry image of my SUV with the caption, "When residents keep junk cars on the street." Some of us take action. You're welcome. Applewood overnight. She'd gotten over 100 likes. Comments ranged from, "Finally someone does something," to, "I wouldn't feel safe with that monster vehicle here either." One stood out. "That's not a junk car. Karen, that looks like government-grade armor. Are you sure you didn't mess up?" Karen replied, "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing." She had no idea what she was doing, and neither did the neighborhood yet. Chapter 2. You'd think after having a federal command vehicle towed, the situation couldn't get more surreal. But then you realize you're dealing with a fake HOA president who built a paper empire on fake forms and real intimidation. And it's not just her, it's the system she quietly constructed underneath a canopy of community pride. Let me explain how Applewood Heights works. There's no legitimate HOA here, at least not by state filing. What we have is something Karen calls the Applewood Residential Oversight Committee, or AROC. Sounds official. Right, except it's not a legal entity. It's a rebranded book club with stationery and a fax machine. But in Applewood, perception is everything. If you send enough notices with bold fonts and passive-aggressive letterheads, people comply. Karen had taken that to the extreme. My neighbor, Mrs. Huang, had once been fined $300 for painting her porch light too reflective. When she asked who imposed the fine, Karen cited visual harmony standards from a binder full of made-up rules. She paid it anyway, because Karen made her believe she had to, and I was starting to see Karen wasn't just petty, she was strategic. That Thursday, I went to retrieve my SUV. The impound lot was off a cracked highway on the edge of town. Rows of damaged vehicles baked in the sun. I gave my ID, badge, and authorization. The clerk handed me a clipboard and said, "It was flagged unusual, so we put it in the back." He didn't ask why a government vehicle was towed here. That's how normalized Karen's tactics had become. No one questioned the paperwork. I walked through the lot until I saw my SUV, sitting awkwardly under a tarp that had partially blown off. The rear hatch was bent, one window cracked, antennas crushed, and inside the comms unit was completely gutted. Someone had tried to open the secure drawer, failed, but they pried around it. The tactical locker was dented, hinges warped, the encrypted laptop missing. I stood frozen. A dry gust rolled through the lot, kicking up dust around my boots. "Jesus," I muttered. I called ops. They went silent again. Then came the line that dropped my stomach through the ground. "We believe someone uploaded fragments of surveillance files from the laptop's partition drive. Civilian IP linked to a local open network." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means someone tried to access our data from inside the neighborhood." I went home. Quietly. I didn't tell Ayla. She was in her room drawing little galaxy doodles, oblivious to the fact that her dad's career and possibly his freedom were hanging by a thread. That night, I sat in the garage with the SUV's rear door open. I examined the damage up close. Karen hadn't just inconvenienced me. She'd breached federal infrastructure, endangered a classified operation, and publicly humiliated my family. And somehow, she was still smugly sipping wine on her porch across the street, smiling. That's when I started connecting dots. The fake tow form had a serial number in the corner. I traced it. It led nowhere. No city record, no HOA registry. Just a filing cabinet in Karen's garage. According to public zoning complaints filed over the past year, I accessed a private contractor database, used it for off-duty cases. Karen had issued nearly 57 notices over the last 12 months, all using the same logo, all threatening fines. Most weren't paid to the city. They were mailed into a P.O. box registered under Applewood Beautification and Development Trust. I checked tax records. No such trust existed. The next morning, I knocked on 3 doors. First was Mrs. Huang. Mrs. Huang, I said gently, did you ever pay a fine to Karen for the porch light thing? She looked both ways before answering, like I'd asked about her visa status. Yes, she said, $300. I didn't want trouble. She said she'd report me. To who? She said, the board. There is no board, I replied. She frowned. Then who has my money? Second was a young couple, James and Lila. Their mailbox had recently been painted over. Karen said it violated the community palette. James told me, we paid her $50 in repainting fees. Did she show you any ordinance? No, but we just moved in. Didn't want to start drama. I nodded, jaw tight. She's been doing this to everyone, Lila whispered. But nobody wants to be the one to fight her. She's connected. No, she's not. I said, she's a fraud, and I was going to prove it. That afternoon, I drove downtown, used an off-duty login at the county records office. I printed every filed complaint, every document Karen had forged. I built a file thick enough to land with a satisfying thud on any judge's desk. But I wasn't done, because now it wasn't just about me or the SUV. Karen's little empire was eating this community from the inside. Fear disguised as civility, and everyone was falling for it. Until now. At 8:00 p.m., I set up a projector in my driveway. Ayla helped hang a sheet. I invited 10 neighbors. 30 showed up. Karen stood across the street, arms folded. What's this? She called out. Neighborhood movie night, I replied. You'll like the feature. I plugged in my laptop. The projector lit up. First slide. The truth about A-Rock and the woman behind it. Gasp. Slide after slide. I laid out the fake forms, the fake fees, the stolen funds, and the pattern of harassment. I showed how Karen had no legal authority, no city registration, and no approval to tow anything. Then, the final slide, classified government command vehicle towed by unauthorized order, federal inquiry. Pending, you could hear a pin drop. Karen's wine glass trembled in her hand. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, I don't want revenge. I want the truth to matter here. I want my daughter to live in a neighborhood where intimidation doesn't win. Mrs. Huang stepped forward. She stole from all of us, she said. And just like that, Karen's wall cracked. One by one, people began speaking out. James, Lila, even the HOA vice chair from a few years back, who'd quietly resigned because Karen made it impossible to speak. That night, the neighborhood changed, not fixed, but awakened. Chapter 3. You ever see a dam start to crack? It doesn't blow all at once. First comes the tremble just enough to make folks nervous. Then a hiss. Then one person dares to speak. And suddenly, the whole damn wall of silence bursts. That's what happened after the neighborhood projector night. For the first time since we moved in, people looked me in the eye. Some apologized. Others brought cookies or offers to help. But more importantly, they started asking questions. Not to me, to each other. Like, why does Karen get to approve tree trimming? Or did anyone actually elect her? And what the hell is a visual harmony violation anyway? Within 48 hours, I had over a dozen emails forwarded to me, people digging through old fines and notices they'd received from Karen. I started a folder called Fraud Trail. It ballooned to 78 files. Each one told the same story: forged forms, fake violations, money paid to a P.O. box tied to an untraceable trust. I knew I had enough to push charges. But this wasn't just a petty scam. This was Karen weaponizing perception, and folks were still scared of her. And that fear, that had to go. I needed someone louder than Karen. And I knew just the person. My brother, Deshaun, is not the type of guy you forget. Retired SWAT lead, now a public security consultant, charismatic, brutally honest, and built like a linebacker with a law degree. People listen when he talks, even if they hate what he says. He drove down from Richmond that weekend. When he saw the SUV still banged up from the tow, antennas snapped, rear lock warped, he gave a low whistle. She did this, he asked. She ordered it. A fake tow through a fake HOA. I said, now there's data that might have leaked from the onboard system, and your boss's internal review is watching, not blaming me yet, but if this spirals, he nodded, you lose everything. Exactly. He turned toward Karen's house. You want this to end quietly? I want it to end legally. Loud. If it has to be, Deshaun cracked his knuckles. Then it's time to pull the first domino. We didn't confront Karen directly. That would have been too easy and too emotional. Instead, we set up a town hall meeting. Not sanctioned by the city, not hosted by A-Rock, just a casual block gathering, open invite, held on neutral ground, the elementary school gym down the street. We posted flyers. Let's talk truth, what's real in Applewood and what isn't. No one mentioned Karen by name, but everyone knew. We expected 25 people. We got nearly 100. Karen showed up late. She strutted in, wearing pearls, holding a stack of papers and her signature red clipboard. She smiled at everyone like this was a bake sale, and she was the queen of lemon bars. The mic was already in Deshaun's hand. He didn't waste time. Let me tell y'all a story, he began, about how easy it is for fear to disguise itself as order. He walked slowly, letting his voice echo. When people are told they're violating a rule, most folks don't ask who wrote that rule. They just comply, because we're trained to avoid conflict. We think quiet is peace. He pointed toward the crowd. But peace built on fear is not peace. It's control. He paused. Then there is no registered HOA here. Gasps. There is no legal authority to fine you for mailbox colors, garden layouts, or the height of your hedges. He held up one of Karen's pink envelopes. This is fiction wrapped in font and fear. The room murmured. Whispers became chatter. Someone raised a hand. But what about all the money we paid? That's what we need to talk about, Deshaun said. And how you can get it back. Karen stood up. Excuse me, I am the president of the Oversight Committee. There is no such committee. He cut in. Calm and firm. You're a civilian, just like the rest of us. You forged documents. You impersonated a governing body, and you're facing criminal liability. Silence. Then someone clapped. And then everyone did. Karen's face drained. She turned, tried to leave. A woman followed her out, holding one of those fake fines. But the real damage wasn't her humiliation. It was what came after. The city caught wind. A local reporter from Channel 7 reached out to me the next day. Apparently, someone anonymously sent her a PDF dump of the fraud trail folder. She wanted to run a story, fake HOA, president faces public outrage over fraudulent TOWs. Fines. I gave her everything. Names redacted, facts clear. It aired on a Friday night. Karen's porch lights never turned on again after that. But karma wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I got a call from internal operations. Malik, the voice said, we traced the unauthorized data access. Did it leak? Thankfully, no. It was intercepted, password failed. But the attempt came from an unsecured IP logged into a home in Applewood. Whose home? The voice paused. Karen Donnelly's. She'd opened the laptop. She'd tried to brute force a secure federal system. That wasn't just a breach. That was a federal crime. The next day, unmarked cars pulled up outside her house. Quiet. Efficient. I watched from across the street with Ayla. 2 agents walked up, showed their badges. Karen answered the door, visibly trembling. For once, no clipboard, no scarf, just silence. They let her out gently, not in cuffs, but very, very publicly. The whole neighborhood watched. No one defended her. A few whispered. One person took a video. I didn't, because I didn't need to humiliate her. She'd done that herself. Chapter 4. A community doesn't collapse from one lie. It collapses from the moment the lie is exposed. And in Applewood Heights, that moment came with Karen's quiet ride in a federal SUV. No handcuffs, no press conference, just two agents, a sealed laptop case, and a clipboard held as evidence. But the silence that was louder than any siren. She didn't return that night, or the next. Her porch light stayed off. Her wreath fell sideways in the wind. And slowly, one by one, the community began to shift. It started on Nextdoor. The headline read, Karen removed for questioning federal officers investigating towed vehicle incident. The comment section exploded. Wait, what vehicle? You mean that black SUV she called junk? I paid her $250 for a flower bed violation. Can I get it back? This is what happens when someone drunk on power doesn't get checked. And my favorite, who actually made her president, I swear I never voted for anyone. Truth had finally landed, and it hit like a thunderclap. At first, people were angry, not just at Karen, but at themselves. They'd complied too easily, paid too quickly, let fear dictate their front lawns. But then something beautiful started to happen. They organized. The first Saturday after Karen was taken in, Mrs. Huang and the couple across the street hosted what they called a reclamation gathering. It was simple folding chairs on lawns, cookies on napkins, and a microphone plugged into a Bluetooth speaker. No hierarchy, no agendas, just open discussion. People brought copies of their fake fines. Others brought spreadsheets of who had paid what over the last year. One neighbor brought actual receipts from the P.O. box linked to Karen's Shell account, and no one looked away anymore. They looked at each other, and they talked. Lila stood and read out her non-compliance notice from last spring. James followed with his mailbox tone violation. Each one drew laughter, then grim recognition. Because what had once felt like isolated shame was now seen for what it truly was, coordinated fraud, wrapped in authority theater. I didn't speak that night. I didn't need to. They were doing what I had hoped for all along, healing. Together. Not from some grand speech, not from a headline, but from the truth. Out loud. The following week, I met with a local attorney named Priya Desai. She specialized in HOA fraud and civil recourse. This isn't the first time someone's pulled a stunt like this. She told me over coffee, but it might be the most thorough. She had fake bylaws, forged enforcement notices, and she used legal-sounding language to scare people. That's coercion and possibly racketeering. Can we get people's money back? Yes, she said, but we need community signatures, at least 30, to certify a class. I nodded. You'll have 60 by tomorrow, and we did. Karen didn't return for nearly a month. When she did, it was in the dead of night. A neighbor spotted her unloading luggage into her garage, hood up, face down. She didn't wave. She didn't post on Facebook. She didn't even try to reassert her title, because she couldn't. The trust was gone. The badge of fake authority had cracked, and in its place, something better had taken root: accountability. But just when things began to settle, the backlash hit another level. Channel 7 ran a follow-up story, this time with a title that made Karen's name trend statewide. Fake HOA president under federal investigation after towing government command unit. They aired my projector night slideshow. Blurred names, blurred addresses. But the point was clear: the SUV she towed wasn't just junk. It was active, encrypted, and linked to a federal operation. That's when the backlash went national. Karen's face was picked up by meme accounts. One went viral: Karen, I'm just keeping the neighborhood safe. Also Karen, photo of SWAT SUV being towed. Ma'am, you just committed a felony. A YouTube channel covered the scandal under the title, The HOA President Who Tried to Police a SWAT Truck. Within a week, someone found her personal blog, Karen's Corner, which she had been quietly deleting. Internet sleuths archived the posts. Turns out she'd been bragging for months. Today I filed 3 notices and had a mystery vehicle removed. Neighbors are too scared to thank me out loud, but I know I'm making a difference. Meanwhile, Ayla and I finally had peace. She planted new flowers, painted a mural on the fence stars, vines, and a little armored truck hidden in the corner like an inside joke. Kids started visiting our front yard again. No one called it unsightly, but not everyone forgave. One neighbor started a petition to prevent Karen from ever holding a position of influence in the neighborhood again. Another called for restitution. A third launched a podcast called Not in My Driveway, discussing fake HOA abuse nationwide. It stirred debate. Some said Karen was just trying to keep things orderly. Others said she was a fraud who exploited silence. A few argued both, and maybe that was the point. Chapter 5. There's a moment after the storm passes when everything just stills. It's not quiet because there's nothing left. It's quiet because people are rebuilding. That's what Applewood Heights became. Not perfect, not polished, but real. The phony order that once suffocated our neighborhood regulations from nowhere. Citations in pink envelopes, invisible boards, and made-up votes was gone. In its place, a hand-painted community board nailed to the old clubhouse wall. And at the top of it, in thick letters someone had spray-painted, "No one speaks for us without us." Karen never came to the meetings again. Her house, once a monument to tidy tyranny, grew quieter by the day. The flags were taken down. The ceramic lawn figures disappeared. She covered her windows with privacy film and rarely checked the mail. We knew she was still there, but no one ever saw her jog like she used to, clipboard swinging. No one caught her standing on porches, issuing suggestions. The power she once held had dissolved. And now, we held the pen. Mrs. Huang proposed the first official charter. Nothing enforceable. She said, just values, agreed upon by everyone. Public, transparent. We called it the Applewood Accord, a shared pledge of courtesy, respect, and support. No fines, no punishments. Just a vision front yards should reflect who lives there, not who controls them. It was voted in unanimously. Even Karen was invited to sign it. She didn't. But that was okay, because it wasn't about her anymore. I had been cleared by my agency. After an extensive investigation, they confirmed no files had been leaked, though a brute force attempt had triggered an emergency wipe protocol. The vehicle was recovered, repaired, reassigned, but not to me. My supervisor offered me a new post. Same agency, different focus. You've spent years responding to crises. Malik, maybe now's the time to start preventing them. I took it. Now I train community response teams, SWAT liaisons, local officers, emergency planners. I teach them how to spot quiet abuses of power, how to listen, how to push back when authority starts sounding too vague to be real. Because what happened here, it's not rare. It's just rarely exposed. Ayla painted a new mural 2 weeks later. She called it the Gate Rebuilt. It's bold sunflowers and cracked sidewalks and kids on scooters. At the center, there's a tall fence split down the middle. On one side, a padlock rusting in shadow. On the other, vines spilling through the open gate. It's beautiful, messy, honest, like us. One evening, I found Karen at the community mailbox. We hadn't spoken since the agents came. She avoided my gaze, pretended to fumble with her keys. I nodded politely. Evening. She glanced up. Her voice was thin. Do they hate me? I paused. No, I said. They saw what fear did. They're just done letting it lead. She didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. Call to action. What would you do if your neighbor built their own rules and no one stopped them? Do communities work best with order or freedom? Where do we draw the line between respect and control? Comment below who was right. What would justice look like where you live? Share this story if you've ever faced unfair power and decided to stand